Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the People's Poll, the Monday morning show where James and I discuss a topic chosen.
Do you do that on purpose?
Nah, I was just in a daze. I thought, let's get started. My name is Serge.
My name is James.
This is PlanetFPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. End of another game week 11. Bright and early, 8 something in the morning. That's why we've got our teas and coffees on the go.
Yeah.
And reasonably successful game week in some ways for many people. Manchild, good morning.
Good morning.
But People's Poll, we're talking about a topic chosen by the people on Twitter. What is it this week, James?
Clear and easy winner, unlike the last couple of weeks, which was handy because I had one too many pints yesterday, so I didn't need to overthink this.
Yeah.
The people have decided to vote for us to have a discussion about the fixture headache surrounding Liverpool following their Carabao Cup thriller of a victory on penalties against Arsenal last week. We'd also put out, and we'll possibly cover all three of these a little bit during the main podcast tonight, Sheffield United, and obviously how well they're doing, and do we now need to look at them as something more than this promoted side? Should we now be talking about them in the same breath as we spoke about Wolves last year? Mm-hmm. I put in Jose Mourinho into the poll because there were managers under pressure and his name is getting mentioned with them. So I thought it would be interesting to have an open conversation in terms of would he be suitable for, I guess, particularly Arsenal or Tottenham? The answer to both of those is no, by the way.
There was there was a few Twitter polls from West Ham blogs or fan websites or whatever asking if we'd take Jose over Pellegrini right now, and the overwhelming majority of people were saying no.
Really?
Yeah.
He'd be good for you.
I don't know. No.
And a chat about, which we did a little bit at the end of People's Poll last Monday on Granit Xhaka.
Granit.
Obviously the developments that's happened since the booing incident in the Crystal Palace game. It's obviously been over a week now. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we'll touch on that a little bit on the main podcast.
We will when we run down the games and talk about Arsenal's lucky draw. Really, I think you'd have to say against Wolves, based on the stats for certain. Anyway, so Liverpool's fixture headache was the clear winner. This is something that was on the horizon for a while, but now feels like it's imminent. We looked at it in the early part of the season when we knew about this World Club Cup or whatever, and obviously. Even more for me because it was the West Ham home game that was the one that was postponed. As a result of that, they now are through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. So game week 18 is when they have a blank because of the West Ham game.
That's correct.
What game week is the one that they could potentially have a clash with now because of the Carabao Cup? Because Carabao Cup will be played midweek.
It's not a Premier League clash as such. Because the Carabao Cup quarterfinals are the midweek before that.
Yep, before game week 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to give you kind of brief in terms of where Liverpool are at, they've got between now and that game week 18 blank, 6 league fixtures to fulfill. In that time, there's an international break and there are also 3 Champions League fixtures as well. So there is no time to fit that fixture in. It's not happening in terms of trying to move it forward at all.
I suppose, all of those league games are weekends, aren't they? There's no midweek football between now and then.
Game week 15 is midweek fixtures.
Game week 15 is. So you've got 3 Champions League midweek, 1 Premier League midweek, and you've got an international break midweek, and then 5 weekends. So literally 5 weekends, 4 midweeks, and an international break in between.
So you've got where it'll break down from between now and the World Club Cup or that scheduled League Cup quarterfinal is City at home, international break, Palace away, Champions League, Brighton at home, Everton at home midweek, Bournemouth away, Champions League, Watford at home. Mm-hmm. So there's nowhere for it to fit in behind. I saw a few people talking online about the suggestion of the Carabao Cup quarterfinal being played the weekend before, so perhaps postponing Liverpool against Watford, for example. It's not.
They won't ever postpone a league game for the Carabao Cup.
Absolutely spot on. It's not going to happen. It will only happen when it has to happen. The Premier League are aware, obviously, that they'll schedule fixtures the same weekend as the final, and they know they're going to lose 2 fixtures. This comes back to the whole thing that I harped on a lot last year about plans in place. That fixture is 2 weeks before Christmas, where they play Watford. It is the earliest fixture of game week 17 as a 12:30 kickoff on the 14th of December, where Watford fans, however many of them, they'll probably still take 3,000 up to Anfield.
Yeah, of course.
They're booked in, their trains. A club like Liverpool will have obviously global support coming in from all over the world, potentially, for a fixture like that will be easier to get tickets for.
Yeah.
The game is not getting moved, mate.
I agree with you on that. There's no chance. I can never see Premier League matches being moved for the Carabao Cup unless it really there was no other option.
So one of the things that has been muted is this idea that Liverpool play their first Club World Cup games. So they'll only play a semi-final and a final. So the semi-final, I believe, for them is scheduled to be the Wednesday, the 18th.
Yeah.
And the final is then 4 days after that on the
Saturday.
22nd. So one idea is, could they play half a team at Villa and then fly out whatever they need for the final, i.e. play 2 different teams? i.e. play against Villa on the Tuesday in the League Cup with, 16 players for that. Play the semi-final, which will be against weaker opposition who they would thoroughly expect to beat. Take 16 players for that. And then anybody else they need to move out for the final to make them stronger for likely a meeting with the South American champions they can then do. I don't think that's on the table at all as a possibility.
I think it sets a precedent that clubs will not want to set.
Dangerous.
I mean, there's plenty of teams in the Premier League that have got squads deep enough to be able to do that should the need arise. But I think if you do it once, people will set a precedent and want to come back to it. I just don't think it's right. At this point, you're only then a couple of steps removed from B teams being in the regular league. And no one wants that right now. No one wants that right now.
I think were that to be, if they went to Liverpool and said that's what you have to do, Liverpool would pull out.
Of the World Club? Or
No,
of
the League Cup.
Yeah.
Ain't putting out the World Club Cup, mate. It's the one with the money.
Yeah, maybe, but that's 2 games. I don't think you can really. I mean, it's a trophy, right? Liverpool fans probably really want that trophy, but
the chance, 80%
to win
chance
2 games and get a trophy.
Well, the chances are it's an 70-80% chance that they'll win that competition, and then they can call themselves champions of the world. Liverpool have never won it.
Oh, really?
To my knowledge.
Okay. And I know I'm saying it's 2 games and you win it. They had to win the Champions League to have the right to play 2 games to win it. So
yeah, that Mickey Mouse other competition.
I get that. So 2 teams in two countries at the same time, we're thinking is not going to happen.
No.
So where does that leave a window of opportunity for them to play that game? Because the thing is, the West Ham game can be kicked all the way up until May if need be.
Correct. Right? We'll come back onto that. I think what's important to say at this stage is, and you'll remember me saying this, I said about a month or so ago that Arsenal would definitely beat them in that League Cup fixture because I could see the problem happening. And I think...
They almost did, to be fair.
Like, I don't know why it's ended up in this fixture problem anyway. And I think this sort of thing highlights probably a bigger problem that we're going to have going forward. I think there's every chance that soon, because of the amount of games that the top clubs, if you're a Liverpool and you get to a Champions League final and you're expected to progress in domestic cups, I do think, and I wouldn't want it, but I feel the Premier League might be going towards an 18-team league.
Interesting.
I think it's something the bigger clubs would want. It's greater share of the money. Then it's not getting spread over 20 teams, it's getting spread over 18 teams. The greedy fat cats.
You're not going to really see the amount of money decreasing, right? They're not going to charge Sky any less for an 18-team league than a 20-team league. There'll be more televised games as a result for your own club, potentially. I mean, we're blessed and our clubs get featured quite a lot compared to some of the others on telly. So, yeah, I'm always surprised at how many West Ham games do get televised, considering how garbage we are at the moment, especially. So when can they squeeze it in? Because when's the semi-finals for the League Cup?
Yeah, so I think this is my opinion of what will likely happen. So when they come back from the Club World Cup, the final of that is the 22nd. They then play Leicester on Boxing Day, the 8 o'clock kickoff on Boxing Day, where we can all sit and watch football all day long. That will be the last game. 3 days later, they play Wolves on the Sunday, the 29th. And then a few days after that, they play Sheffield United at home, which I believe is the only fixture for game week 28 scheduled on the Thursday night. Mm-hmm. The weekend after that is the FA Cup third round. That will happen first. They'll play the FA Cup third round tie. And for Liverpool, presumably, that will have to be Sunday, January the 5th. The Carabao Cup semi-final first legs are then scheduled for the midweek after that. Week commencing Monday the 6th or whatever that is. So presumably for Liverpool, they will have to play, in my opinion, their quarterfinal with Aston Villa on the 8th of January.
It's a semi-final week?
Which is the semi-final first leg scheduled. Mm-hmm. Okay. There is the blessing of a midweek afterwards, which is currently blank, which is scheduled for the FA Cup third round replays.
Okay.
In my opinion, where we've said how the Premier League will take precedence at this stage, where TV fixtures have been announced, etc., I think this is the case where the priority to get one tournament finished before another will take priority. And therefore, I think Liverpool or Aston Villa's first leg semi-final would be scheduled for the midweek of the FA Cup third round. And then the second leg, because there's actually 3 weeks between the Carabao Cup semi-final first and second legs.
Okay, we'll be back to normal.
And then the second leg will fall into line.
Mm-hmm. Did they draw, just out of interest, have they drawn the semi-finals as well? Because quite often they do that in cup competitions where they'll draw the quarters and semis at the same time.
Only in the Champions League and that. Obviously, they will know the...
Two other...
correct, yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be 5 teams in the semi-final draw, you would think.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most likely solution, is that Liverpool or Villa, and I think it'll be Villa, by the way, anyway, because just for Liverpool go, fuck this, can't bothered. They'll play their Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, what would have been the FA Cup third round replay. If either of the two teams...
time the other semi-finals already taking place.
Yeah, what you're then going to hope then is that the FA Cup third round featuring Villa and whomever, or Liverpool and whomever, wouldn't have a replay. I think if that was the case...
because that would just make it even more funny.
Well, yeah, I'd be like that as well. I'd be like, yeah, fuck it up.
I think it explains a lot now. We know why Liverpool are so flipping ruthless and relentless right now, because they want the league done and dusted by Christmas so they can punt a few league games. They're animals at the moment. The
reason I think that will take precedence in terms of fitting the semi-final in there, so semi-final first leg, same night as FA Cup third round, is the scope to be pushing the FA Cup fixtures back a little bit. Now, obviously, as I said, if neither of those teams have a third round replay that's involved, everything's cushy. That's it. It's done. Problem solved. But I think if they did, then third round replay would be on fourth round weekend. Right. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then again, you'd push back. So then the fourth round original tie would be played the midweek scheduled for the replay. At that point, they might even make a decision to say this will be a one-off tie.
Have no replays.
Because now there are no replays from the fifth round onwards.
Yeah, may as well just make that fourth round onwards.
Spurs.
It's only a couple of steps away from there being no replays in the FA Cup soon anyway.
Well, that's another case of argument, which I think, there's every possibility that that's the way that we're going. The fourth round replay, I believe, is scheduled for the midweek of the beginning of 24th. I might be right in saying that. I'm going to try and check that out.
Of January?
Basically, because what's different this year as well is the headache of the 2 weeks off.
Oh, yeah, we've got our nice international, not international break, but mid-season break in February. That's the 5th and the 12th, is it? Where there's 5 games and 5 games. But again, that's another option where you're like, you know what? You're not getting a mid-season break. It's your own bloody fault for being so good and winning all your games. You're not getting it.
That won't happen. They're not going to schedule games in that period. To make that much of a fuss about it. So basically, the fixture schedule for the 8th of February at the moment are going to be split into five Premier League fixtures that weekend,
and 5 the week,
5 the following weekend, with the idea being that everybody will get at least a 13-day break minimum. Mm-hmm. I think is the idea, with no competitive football. I cannot see any way where to make that much of a fuss of trying to get to this point,
Yeah.
which I have a different way I would have done it personally, that we then schedule fixtures in that period. It can't happen, in my opinion. The Champions League restarts, so the first leg of the last 16, which they're staggered fixtures as well. So that's the 18th, 19th, and the 25th, 26th are the game days of February.
Yeah.
Now, because they're staggered, let's assume Liverpool will be in the last 16 of that tournament. I think that's
Fair
95% likely. We have this situation like we had last year, where obviously Everton played Man City. And the game wasn't televised, but it was the same night as Champions League fixture. Now, I think if worst comes to the worst, that's what will happen here with an FA Cup fourth round replay.
Yeah.
The FA Cup fifth round is scheduled for midweek fixtures this year, and it is not until Wednesday the 4th of March.
That's still a while away.
Which is incredibly late. So that's what I'm saying. They could have any potential fourth round replay, worst case scenario, in the Champions League midweek night that they're not playing. So what you'll end up in the last 16 of the Champions League, you'll have, for example, if all the teams go through, Liverpool and City will play 1 week, Spurs and Chelsea will play the other week. There is a 3 week there. And I think at the moment, that's also the likeliest period for the West Ham Liverpool rearrangement as well. Unless I think both sides went out the FA Cup quite early. It's around about that period when we're likely to see that Premier League fixture being rearranged. And I think from a Premier League perspective, what it means is that double game week is really not likely to happen till February at the earliest. And you're right, it could end up being really late. I think one of the scenarios I even saw being touted was that you would play them twice in a week.
If we did do that, I wouldn't mind, because I think the later it goes, the more likely they are to have the league wrapped up, and so the more likely they are to not give a shit about the league game against us, which could be only a good thing based on the form that they're in at the moment. And it would be quite funny to play them twice in a week. I mean, it's no different to having a home and away cup ties almost.
Well, you're scheduled to go to Anfield on the 22nd of February. That midweek afterwards is potentially a Champions League blank.
Yep.
As in the fixture could go in there. So yes, every possibility that the double game week will be Liverpool and West Ham twice.
Wow. Well, one of the double game weeks.
Yeah,
Because there will be others.
There's more further down the line. I mean, one of the reasons that I haven't really pulled up on chip strategy this year is because there's not as much flexibility with it this year, in my opinion, in terms of planning. I mean, my idea at the moment now is I've still got the first wild card. Mine is to use the second wild card on game week 36 for a bench boost in 37. And the way the fixture for the I know what you're saying. It's so late to use it. I get that.
And there's one real reason. I don't mind it going so late, but the one real reason is that there's not as much to play for at that time. So you do get some really funny results in the last couple of game weeks of the season with teams that don't have as much to play for. Having said that, with you guys and United so far behind at the moment, you're going to be there or thereabouts. You'd think that third and fourth place is going to run down to the wire. If not third and fourth, fifth and sixth is going to run down to the wire. So there may be something for the likes of United, Arsenal and Tottenham to be playing for, but I think the league will be done and dusted by then.
I'm not sure if Arsenal, Spurs or Man United fans give a monkeys if they're in or out the Europa League.
No, but the clubs will, more than not. They'd want to finish. You'd rather finish in the Europa League than out.
Well, I think distance probably from Spurs and United to Leicester and Chelsea, the way they're playing, is 10 points now.
Mad.
It's too much.
It's mad.
Was it 7 to Arsenal now? Is it something like that?
I mean,
might be less.
Leicester are favourites against Arsenal at the weekend.
It's nobody listening to this now doesn't think Chelsea and Leicester are qualifying for the Champions League next year.
Correct.
In my opinion.
Yeah, we don't. So
no.
We'll talk about it on the main podcast, which is a nice segue in about how. My team's moving. My FPL team's moving towards a free hit team based just on those 4 teams: Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Leicester. And then just chuck in Lundstrom for a bit of fun, because we all got to have a bit of Lundstrom, haven't we?
Wow.
And that's it.
I really wanted to save John Lundstrom for the main pod.
Oh, we'll talk about him later. We'll talk about that defender later. we do have a main pod coming for the people, as we always do. Let's talk about the content for the rest of the week, because that's given hopefully the listeners a bit of insight into what's happening with Liverpool's fixture pile-up that's imminent. Main podcast is coming at you today. It's Monday that we're recording, so if you're listening on Monday, that will be out this evening. There's no Monday Night Football. Game Week 11 is done. We'll be running through all of the Premier League fixtures from the weekend. We have Tottenham tomorrow, which is Tuesday. More rants. But I just think is it like if there was an angryometer, James was here and I was here, and it's going like this now, where I've overtaken James in terms of
I think Tottenham this week is probably going to be West Ham heavy.
It is going to be West Ham heavy.
I will try and talk through how Spurs play a little bit sometimes without Heung-min Son, working on the basis at the moment that he will be suspended.
That'll be a topic of discussion in the main pod as well. We have Sky Fantasy Football this week. How many did you score in Sky, James? 70 something?
No, 80 something.
Oh, nice. I got 68 in the end, which was a red arrow. I dropped 10k, but I didn't make any transfers stupidly this week. So I still got 37 transfers up my sleeve. I'm going to be making moves now. So we've got Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday, clash of the correspondents. Who do we have on this week, James?
As I've said previously, not to upset a few people, but the two biggest clubs in the Midlands. At Parker_Bradley for Wolves, and Adam Cropcroft at a Hopcroft 13 representing Aston Villa. The biggest game this Super Sunday. Let's forget about Liverpool against Man City.
I understand what you're saying. It's actually going to be a good watch. Villa are playing well. Wolves are playing well as well. They created a ton of chances against Arsenal. For the neutral, it's going to be a great game. Actually, two really good games on Super Sunday.
They don't like each other, Wolves and Villa. I think Bradley and
it's like you and Arsenal. You don't like
Bradley and Adam get on all right, but
yeah. It's going to be a local derby, but I think it's going to be a good football match. Let's see.
Yeah, good games on the telly this Saturday with obviously Leicester and Arsenal's the 5:30 as well.
Oh, nice.
So good fixtures this weekend.
A good weekend to do very little. And then on Friday, we'll be bringing you the final plan. Well, I'm not sure what's happening with the final plan. It might be a solo, James. It might be something. I've got a family wedding on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Which is screwing up. Yeah, I'm not going to be around on Friday, sadly. So I need to figure out what's happening with the diary. I may be in, I may not, but we'll work out a way.
Well, one way or the other, what I can tell you...
The show must go on.
Yes, the main conversation on Friday, with or without you, will be very much about captaincy, and not just for this weekend, but coming up weekends, because it's tricky. The captaincy is really tricky the next couple of game weeks. Yeah,
we can talk about it on the main show. We just had a game week 11 where most people missed captaincy, and still we had an average of 53. So it goes to show it's. I think it's like if everybody misses, then it's all right, and we will see quite a bit of concentration, in my opinion, within certain teams. Like this weekend, the majority of people, well over half, I would say, were on either Aguero or Sterling or a City asset. And the same thing will happen in these weeks where it's not obvious. People gravitate towards the team rather than a particular individual. So that'll be a good topic of conversation. I'll be talking about my transfers quite early, which will be today's show, because I may be moving particularly early. I'm a Heung-min Son owner.
I think we might be buying the same player this week.
I'm buying 3. So.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. It's time to stop being a stingy tightwad with my points and get 4 of them out to take a hit this week. I've got 2 frees, and so I'll be looking at that.
Cool.
And I'm going to start actually trying to protect my squad value a little bit now, which I haven't been doing. I'm still at 101.6, 101.7, which isn't bad.
Spoiler to keep the Liverpool thread going on here. I'm pretty sure Suja's talking about Sadio Mane.
Well, Mane's gone up, but Aubameyang's gone down. I let him go on Saturday night from 11.1 to 11. It doesn't help my transfer budget because I didn't have that 0.1, but it does affect the overall squad value. So there we go. Plenty of stuff coming at you this week from Planet FPL. So we'll be back tonight. I hope you enjoyed the People's Poll with the main podcast. I'm sure at some point James will be putting a tweet out to ask for questions. So if you're not already following him at Planet FPL Pod on Twitter, keep an eye for that. Put your question in and you may get it answered later. Other than that, ciao for now.
Cue music, man child.